Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our short webinar series. I'm Derek Taylor, a sales and business development specialist with Goodwin Company Property Management. As a leader in the association management space, we'd like to provide as much information to our communities as possible. And we're doing this through a short webinar series where we'll be addressing some frequently asked questions on topics that board members and homeowners might be seeking a little further explanation on. Today I have an expert in his field joining me to provide a professional opinion on the subject we're going to discuss. Mr. Clint Brown, would you please introduce yourself, speak a little to your background and the role you play in association management?
Yes, sir. Hey, Derek, thank you for having me today, and thank you all as well. As Derek mentioned, my name's Clint Brown. I'm with the law firm Roberts, Markell, Weinberg, Butler, Haley. I'm a shareholder with the firm, and I actually lead our community association division statewide. Much like Goodwin, we have offices in all of the major metroplexes across Texas and serve communities across Texas as well. So we're going to be doing a Q&A today. Derek and I are going to be discussing legal topics, but I want to make it clear our kind of webinar series is for educational purposes only. So it is not legal advice. And if you need that legal advice, please be sure to get with your Goodwin management team and or legal counsel so that you can get advice tailored to your community. With that, Mr. Taylor, I will turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining us and giving us a piece of your time today. We're looking forward to the discussion with you. One of the frequently asked questions that we get, and I get this both from property managers as well as board members, but does an association board have to follow Robert's Rules of Order? And what does having a board meeting actually look like?
And I get this question a lot, and there are owners in the community. You're at a board meeting and they try to initiate formal Robert's Rules of Orders, objecting and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes boards and maybe even managers sometimes are kind of left scratching their heads. Is this something we have to follow? And the answer is most of the time, no. You are not required to follow Robert's rules to the T unless, here's the unless, your governing documents require it. So if your governing documents say Robert's Rules of Order shall be followed, what do? I recommend you look into learning the rules. Maybe a board member becomes a parliamentarian, or you amend your bylaws to remove the requirement that Robert's rules be followed. And here's why. Robert's rules are very complicated. They're complex. There's a lot of things you've got to know and understand when objections are made, how to run the meeting. And if you're following it to the T, it's just many times it's going to be just difficult to do it successfully because we're all volunteer. Look, y'all are volunteers, right? It's not your job, and requiring a board member to understand Robert's rules backwards and forwards. It's a book like that. It's a very thick book. So maybe consider amending your bylaws. A lot of times the board can do that without an owner vote, but let's assume, just for discussion purposes, Derek, that it's not a requirement in the governing documents. What do we do with Robert's rules? I think they're great as a guide. They're great to loosely follow Robert's rules and use them as a guiding principle. Making a motion, second on the motion, allowing for discussion, and then taking a yay and nay vote. Those are all great tools to use. Using an agenda, making sure you call somebody out of order when an owner stands up in the middle of a board meeting and starts interrupting you. So all good things. They're great guides, Derek, but I'm not a fan of following it strictly, because if you do, you've either got to become a parliamentarian or you've got to retain a parliamentarian, which, again, could become cost prohibitive.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that insight on the matter. Since you brought up making a motion, at what point, whether we're strictly following the rules or loosely following them, and just trying to maintain order in a board meeting, at what point should we make a motion, have a second, and take a vote? What kind of topics require that kind of movement?
Yeah, so, geez, yeah, that's a really good follow-up. And let's break it down into two types of communities. So type number one is a single family community. That's the traditional community you think of for HOAs bound by Chapter 209 of the Texas Property Code. The other type of community is a condominium community. So you're thinking condos, high rise, mid rise, low rise, and there are certain single family communities now that are actually condominium regimes. So for single family, you're bound by 209.0051 H as in Harry. There's a laundry list of 15 items that must be done at a properly noticed board meeting during open session. So to Derek's point, if you are doing one of those 15 items, you must have a motion made. Period. End of sentence. Other items that are outside the 15, if you are taking an affirmative action and you're about to spend money on something, a motion is required, and I recommend it be done at a board meeting. Sometimes you can take actions outside of a meeting, but if you're able to do it at a board meeting, that's the preferred method, generally speaking. For condominiums, there's not a list of 15. There's a list of 5, and it's 82.108 of the Texas Property Code for condominiums. So outside of that, follow the general rule. If you're spending money, if you're taking formal action, please follow it up with a proper motion and have that recorded in the meeting minutes for that board meeting. It'll really help protect you, and it helps you to follow what's called corporate formality. And corporate formality is very important for nonprofit corporations here in Texas.
Yeah, so Clint, just to, I guess one last question on the topic. The entire reason we're doing this, correct me if I'm wrong here, is just to kind of maintain order, have a flow to a meeting, and protect what board members are doing in the association, and that things are reported in a meeting, in the meeting minutes. Am I right in saying this?
Yep. It really helps you meet your standard of care, right, Derek? As a board member, I think you're spot on. And look, you take an action, and let's say it's not recorded in the meeting minutes because we didn't do it properly. We may have taken the action properly, but we didn't record it properly. 2 years down the road, an owner complains and wants to raise a fuss over maybe a $50,000 contract. Guess what? We don't have a record of the board approving it. That can get the board in a bit of a pickle. So to Derek's point, it is so important to follow procedure.
Yeah, awesome, Clint. I appreciate your time and talking a little bit about board meetings and proper order, and making sure that we're all doing things correctly and protecting ourselves both as a property management company, but also as board members as well. So I appreciate your insights on the topic, and I look forward to having another conversation with you.
Hey, absolutely, Derek. I enjoyed it, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.